Hey everyone, welcome back to English Rhythm. I'm Tom, and if you're watching this video, I know exactly what you're struggling with. You've been studying English for months, maybe even years, but when native speakers talk, it still sounds like they're speaking a completely different language. They talk way too fast, they mumble their words, and you feel like you're missing half of what they're saying. Sound familiar? Well, here's the thing that nobody talks about. The problem isn't your vocabulary. It's not even your grammar. The real problem is that you've never learned how to listen actively. Most English learners are passive listeners, and that's exactly why they struggle to understand real conversations, movies, podcasts, and everyday interactions. Today, I'm going to share with you 5 game-changing active listening techniques that will transform how you understand spoken English. These aren't just theory, these are proven methods that I've used with thousands of students, and they work. By the end of this video, you'll have a complete roadmap to become a confident English listener. But before we dive in, I want you to do something for me. Think about the last time you watched an English movie or listened to an English podcast. How much did you actually understand? Be honest with yourself. Was it 30%? 50%? Maybe 70% if you were really focused? Whatever your answer is, I guarantee that after applying these 5 techniques, you'll see that percentage jump dramatically. Now, if you're serious about improving your English listening skills, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because I share practical English learning strategies like this every single week. And if you find this video helpful, give it a thumbs up. It really helps the channel grow and reach more English learners who need this information. Alright, let's get started with the foundation of everything we're going to talk about today. What exactly is active listening, and why is it so different from what you're probably doing right now? What is active listening and why it changes everything? Active listening is not just hearing English words floating through the air. It's a completely different mindset. It's about engaging your brain, not just your ears. When you listen actively, you're not just waiting for sounds to hit your eardrums. You're thinking, predicting, analyzing, and connecting ideas in real time. Think about how you listen in your native language. When your best friend is telling you a story, you're not just hearing words. You're visualizing what they're describing. You're predicting where the story is going. You're reading between the lines. You're understanding not just what they're saying, but how they're feeling about it. That's active listening. Most English learners do the complete opposite. They listen passively. They let the English wash over them like background music. Maybe they're cooking dinner while listening to a podcast. Maybe they're scrolling through their phone while watching a YouTube video. Maybe they're just hoping that if they listen to enough English, somehow it will magically start making sense. But here's the brutal truth: passive listening will never make you fluent. Your brain needs to be actively engaged to form new neural pathways. It needs to work, to struggle a little bit, to make connections. When you listen passively, your brain stays in sleep mode. Active listening is different. It's intentional. It's focused. It's purposeful. And yes, it requires more energy at first. But the results are incredible. Students who switch from passive to active listening often tell me they can understand twice as much English in just a few weeks. Let me give you a real example. Sarah, one of my students from Brazil, used to listen to English podcasts every day during her commute. She did this for 8 months and saw almost no improvement. She was frustrated and ready to give up. Then I taught her active listening techniques. Within 3 weeks, she was understanding entire conversations that would have been impossible before. The difference wasn't the amount of time she spent listening. The difference was how she listened. So remember, active listening means your brain is working. You're not just hearing, you're understanding. You're not just waiting for words, you're anticipating them. You're not just listening to sounds, you're listening for meaning. This shift in mindset is the foundation of everything else we're going to cover. Now, let me give you the 5 specific techniques that will make this transformation happen for you. Technique 1. The power of prediction. Prime your brain for success. The first technique is something most people never think to do, but it's incredibly powerful. Before you start listening to anything in English, Take 30 seconds to predict what you're about to hear. I know it sounds simple, but this one habit can double your comprehension instantly. Here's why prediction works so well. Your brain is constantly trying to make sense of the world by creating expectations. When you give your brain a head start by thinking about possible vocabulary, topics, and ideas, it can process the incoming information much more efficiently. Let's say you're about to watch a YouTube video about cooking. Before you press play, ask yourself these questions. What cooking methods might they discuss? Will they mention ingredients like onions, garlic, or tomatoes? Will they talk about temperatures, cooking times, or kitchen equipment? Will they describe tastes and textures? Even if you guess wrong, that's perfectly fine. The act of thinking about possibilities activates the relevant vocabulary networks in your brain. When you actually hear those words or similar words, your brain recognizes them faster because those neural pathways are already warmed up. Here's another example. You're about to listen to a business podcast. What might you hear? Words like profit, marketing, customers, strategy, competition, growth, revenue, or challenges. Maybe they'll discuss success stories or failures. Maybe they'll talk about leadership or teamwork. By spending just a few seconds thinking about these possibilities, you're preparing your brain to catch these concepts when they appear. I remember working with David, a student from Germany who was preparing for job interviews in English. He was terrified because he could barely understand his interviewers. I taught him to spend 2 minutes before each practice interview predicting possible questions. What might they ask about his experience? His strengths? His career goals? His salary expectations? This simple preparation technique improved his comprehension so much that he landed his dream job within a month. The key is to be specific with your predictions. Don't just think, "This is about travel." Think deeper. Will they discuss booking flights or finding accommodations? Will they mention delays, cancellations, or lost luggage? Will they describe destinations, attractions, or cultural differences? The more specific your predictions, the more your brain benefits. You can also use visual cues to help with predictions. If you're watching a video, look at the thumbnail and title carefully. If you're listening to a podcast, read the description. If someone is giving a presentation, notice their slides or props. These visual elements give you valuable hints about what vocabulary and topics to expect. Remember, prediction isn't about being right all the time. It's about activating your brain's language processing systems before the listening begins. It's like stretching before exercise. Your mind becomes more flexible and ready to understand what's coming. Try this technique with the next English content you consume. Spend 30 seconds predicting, then notice how much more you understand. I guarantee you'll be surprised by the difference. Technique 2. Focus on the big picture. Stop chasing every word. This is where most English learners get stuck, and it's probably the biggest mistake you can make. You're listening to someone speak English, and suddenly you hear a word you don't know. Your brain panics. You start thinking about that word, trying to figure out what it means, and while you're stuck on that one word, the speaker has already moved on to the next 5 sentences. Stop doing this. Right now. Forever. Here's what you need to understand. Native speakers use words that other native speakers don't know all the time. It's completely normal. Even in your own language, you don't know every single word that exists. But that doesn't stop you from understanding conversations, movies, or books, does it? The secret is learning to focus on the main ideas instead of individual words. When you listen for the big picture, you can understand the overall message even if you miss some details. And here's the amazing part. When you understand the main idea, your brain often figures out the meaning of unknown words automatically through context. Let me show you exactly how this works. Listen to this sentence. The weather forecast said it would be sunny, but when I woke up this morning, it was absolutely torrential outside, so I had to cancel my picnic plans. Maybe you don't know the word torrential. That's okay. What can you understand from the context? The weather forecast was wrong. It was supposed to be sunny. But it wasn't sunny this morning. It was so bad that the person had to cancel outdoor plans. What kind of weather would make you cancel a picnic? Rain, right? Heavy rain. That's exactly what torrential means, very heavy rain. You understood the word without a dictionary. You used context and logic. This is how good listeners think. They don't get stuck on individual words. They keep moving forward and let their brain fill in the gaps. Here's another example. I've been trying to reach customer service all morning, but I keep getting put on hold. It's incredibly frustrating because I have a legitimate complaint about the defective product I received. Maybe legitimate is new for you. But look at the context. This person has been trying to contact customer service. They have a complaint. The product was defective, meaning broken or not working properly. So, legitimate probably means real, valid, or justified. And that's exactly right. The key is to train yourself to think in chunks of meaning, not individual words. When you hear a sentence, ask yourself, what is the main action? Who is doing it? What is the result or consequence? What emotion or attitude is the speaker expressing? I worked with Maria, a student from Mexico, who was obsessed with understanding every single word in English movies. She would pause the movie, look up words in the dictionary, write them down in a notebook, and then try to continue watching. It took her 4 hours to watch a 90-minute movie, and she was exhausted afterward. Worse, she couldn't even remember most of the plot because she was so focused on vocabulary. I taught her to focus on the story instead. Who are the main characters? What do they want? What problems are they facing? How do they solve those problems? Within 2 weeks, she was enjoying movies for the first time in years. And the incredible part? Her vocabulary actually improved faster because she was learning words in meaningful context rather than isolated lists. This doesn't mean vocabulary isn't important. It is. But there's a time for vocabulary study and a time for comprehension practice. When you're practicing listening, focus on understanding the message. Study vocabulary separately during dedicated study time. Here's a practical exercise you can do right now. Find any English video that's about 5 minutes long. Watch it once and write down the main points. Don't worry about words you don't know. Just focus on the overall message. What was it about? What were the key ideas? What was the speaker's main point? Then watch it again and see how much more you understand the second time. You'll be amazed at how much your brain filled in automatically once it understood the big picture. Technique 3. The multiple exposure method. Why once is never enough. Here's a truth that might surprise you. Expecting to understand something perfectly after listening to it just once is unrealistic, even for native speakers. Real listening comprehension happens through multiple exposures to the same content, and this is especially true when you're learning a language. Think about your favorite song in your native language. The first time you heard it, you probably caught the chorus and maybe a few lines from the verses. But after hearing it several times, you could sing along to the entire song. Your brain needed those multiple exposures to process all the words, the rhythm, the meaning, and the emotion. English listening works exactly the same way. The first time you listen to something, your brain is working overtime just to process the basic sounds and identify word boundaries. The second time, you can focus more on meaning. The third time, you might notice subtle details like the speaker's tone, emphasis, or implied meanings that you completely missed before. Let me walk you through what happens during each listening session. During the first listen, your brain is like a detective gathering basic clues. It's figuring out the speaker's accent, the general topic, and the overall mood. You might understand maybe 40 to 60% of the content, and that's completely normal. During the second listen, your brain already knows what to expect. It can focus more on connecting ideas and understanding relationships between different parts of the content. Your comprehension might jump to 70 to 80% because you're not spending mental energy on basic processing. During the third listen, your brain can focus on the details. You might notice transition words that show how ideas connect. You might catch subtle humor or emotion in the speaker's voice. You might understand idiomatic expressions that went completely over your head the first time. I learned this lesson personally when I was studying Spanish. I was listening to a Spanish podcast about entrepreneurship, and I was frustrated because I could only understand about half of what they were saying. Instead of giving up, I decided to listen to the same episode 3 times in a row. By the third time, I felt like I was listening to a completely different podcast. I understood jokes I had missed, I caught references to previous topics, and I even started to appreciate the host's speaking style. The same thing happened with my student James from South Korea. He was preparing for university lectures in English and was terrified that he wouldn't be able to keep up. I gave him one 15-minute TED Talk and asked him to listen to it 5 times over the course of a week. The first time, he understood maybe 30%. By the 5th time, he was understanding nearly everything and could even predict what the speaker was going to say next. Here's how to implement the multiple exposure method effectively. Choose content that's slightly challenging but not overwhelming. If you understand less than 30%, it's too difficult. If you understand more than 80%, it's too easy. Aim for that sweet spot where you understand most of it but still feel challenged. Listen to the same content at least 3 times, but space out the listening sessions. Don't listen 3 times in a row. Listen once today, once tomorrow, and once the day after. This gives your brain time to process and consolidate what you've learned. Each time you listen, have a different focus. The first time, listen for the main ideas. What is this about? What is the speaker's main message? The second time, listen for details. How do the ideas connect? What examples does the speaker give? The third time, listen for language features. What interesting phrases does the speaker use? How do they express agreement, disagreement, or uncertainty? You can also try listening with and without subtitles or transcripts. Listen once without any text support to challenge your pure listening skills. Then listen with subtitles to fill in gaps and confirm your understanding. Then listen one more time without subtitles to see how much your comprehension has improved. Don't feel guilty about listening to the same content multiple times. You're not being lazy or inefficient. You're being smart. You're giving your brain the repetition it needs to form strong neural pathways and automatic recognition patterns. Technique 4. Become a context detective. Unlock unknown words through clues. One of the most powerful skills you can develop as an English listener is the ability to guess the meaning of unknown words using context clues. This skill will make you incredibly confident because you'll realize that you can understand most content even when it contains words you've never heard before. Context clues are like puzzle pieces scattered throughout a sentence or conversation that help you figure out what an unknown word means. These clues might come from the words immediately before and after the unknown word, from the general topic being discussed, from the speaker's tone of voice, or from your background knowledge about the situation. Let me show you how this works with some detailed examples. Listen to this sentence. After walking in the scorching heat for 3 hours without any water, I was absolutely parched and desperately needed something to drink. Maybe you don't know the word parched, but look at all the context clues. The person was walking in scorching heat, which means very hot weather. They walked for 3 hours. They had no water. After all that, they desperately needed something to drink. What condition would make someone desperately need a drink after being in hot weather without water? They would be very thirsty. That's exactly what parched means, extremely thirsty. Here's another example. The new employee seemed really competent during the interview, but after working with her for a few weeks, I realized she was actually quite incompetent and couldn't handle even basic tasks. Maybe incompetent is unfamiliar. But notice the structure of the sentence. It starts with seemed competent, but then says, but, which signals a contrast. After working with her, they realized she couldn't handle even basic tasks. The word appears in opposition to competent and describes someone who can't do their job properly. So, incompetent must mean not skilled or unable to do something well. Sometimes the context clues come from the speaker's tone of voice or the general situation. Imagine you're watching a video where someone says, I can't believe I have to give a presentation to 200 people tomorrow. I'm absolutely petrified. Maybe you don't know petrified, but listen to the speaker's tone. Do they sound excited and happy? Or do they sound worried and nervous? The situation gives you clues too. They have to speak in front of a large group. Most people find that scary. So, petrified probably means very frightened or scared. Here's the key to becoming good at this. Don't panic when you hear an unknown word. Instead, become curious. Ask yourself these detective questions. What is the general situation? What topic are we discussing? What words came right before and after the unknown word? What is the speaker's tone? How does this word fit into the overall meaning of the sentence? Often, you don't need to know the exact dictionary definition of a word to understand the message. You just need to get the general idea. Is this word positive or negative? Does it describe a person, action, or thing? Is it something good or bad that happened? Let me share a story about my student Anna from Russia. She was watching English news and kept getting frustrated by financial terms she didn't know. Words like plummeted, skyrocketed, volatile, and stagnant. Instead of looking up every word, I taught her to focus on the context. When the reporter said, "Stock prices plummeted after the bad news," Anna noticed that the reporter's tone was serious and concerned. The news was described as bad news. This suggested that plummeted meant something negative happened to the stock prices. When they showed a graph, she could see the line going down sharply. So, plummeted must mean dropped quickly or fell rapidly. When another reporter said, "Housing prices have skyrocketed in the city," the context was different. They were talking about a housing shortage and how difficult it was for people to buy homes. The tone suggested this was a problem. If it's a problem that makes buying homes difficult, then skyrocketed probably means the prices went up quickly. This detective approach made Anna much more confident. She stopped feeling overwhelmed by unknown vocabulary because she realized she could understand the main ideas even when she didn't know every word. Practice this technique by choosing content that's slightly above your current level. Don't choose something too difficult where you don't know most of the words. But don't choose something too easy either. You want to encounter a few unknown words so you can practice your detective skills. When you hear an unknown word, resist the urge to immediately pause and look it up. Instead, keep listening and see if you can figure out the meaning from context. You can always check the dictionary later to confirm your guess. Remember, even native speakers use context clues all the time. We encounter new words regularly, and we figure them out through context rather than stopping to consult a dictionary. This is a natural part of how language learning works. Technique 5. Create your focus fortress. Eliminate distractions for maximum learning. The final technique might be the most important one, and it's also the one that most people struggle with in our distraction-filled world. You absolutely must eliminate distractions and create focused listening sessions if you want to improve your English comprehension rapidly. Here's what I see happening with most English learners. They put on an English podcast while cooking dinner. They watch English YouTube videos while scrolling through their phone. They listen to English audiobooks while answering emails. They think they're being efficient by multitasking, but they're actually sabotaging their progress. When you try to listen to English while doing other activities, your brain is constantly switching attention between tasks. This is called task switching, and research shows it dramatically reduces both comprehension and retention. Your brain simply cannot focus fully on language processing when it's also trying to manage other cognitive tasks. Think about having a conversation with someone who's constantly looking at their phone while you're talking. How much of what you're saying do you think they're actually absorbing? Probably very little. That's exactly what you're doing to your English learning when you multitask during listening practice. Here's what focused listening looks like instead. You choose a specific time, even if it's just 15 minutes. You go to a quiet place where you won't be interrupted. You put your phone in another room or at least turn off all notifications. You close your laptop. You tell family members not to disturb you. You create what I call a focus fortress around your English practice time. During this time, you do only one thing: listen to English with complete attention. You can close your eyes to eliminate visual distractions. You can take notes if that helps you focus. You can pause and replay sections. But you don't check messages, you don't think about your grocery list, and you don't let your mind wander to other topics. I know this might sound extreme in our multitasking culture, but the results speak for themselves. Students who implement focused listening sessions consistently report breakthrough moments, where suddenly everything clicks, and English becomes much clearer. Let me tell you about Roberto, a student from Colombia who was stuck at an intermediate level for over 2 years. He was listening to English content for hours every day while commuting, working out, and doing household chores. But his listening skills weren't improving. When I analyzed his routine, I realized he was never giving English his full attention. I challenged Roberto to replace his scattered listening with just 20 minutes of focused listening each day. He chose a quiet time in the morning before checking his phone or starting work. He selected one podcast episode or one YouTube video and listened with complete focus. Within 6 weeks, he was understanding content that had been impossible for him before. The difference wasn't the amount of time he spent listening. If anything, he was listening less than before. The difference was the quality of attention he was giving to the English input. Here's how to create your own focus fortress. First, choose a consistent time each day when your mind is alert. For most people, this is either early morning or evening, not during the afternoon energy crash. Second, eliminate all possible distractions. Phone off, notifications disabled, door closed, comfortable temperature, no background noise. Third, choose your content intentionally. Don't just put on whatever's available. Select content that's appropriate for your level and genuinely interesting to you. If you're bored by the topic, your mind will wander no matter how hard you try to focus. Fourth, set a specific time limit. Start with just 10 or 15 minutes if longer feels overwhelming. It's better to have 10 minutes of laser focus than 30 minutes of scattered attention. You can gradually increase the time as your concentration stamina builds. Fifth, engage actively with the content. Take notes about main ideas. Pause to predict what comes next. Repeat sentences that contain interesting expressions. Ask yourself questions about what you're hearing. The more actively engaged your brain is, the less likely it is to wander. Some people find it helpful to use noise-canceling headphones to create an even deeper level of focus. Others prefer to listen without headphones so they can practice processing English in more natural conditions. Experiment to find what works best for you. Don't underestimate the power of this technique. In our hyper-connected world, the ability to focus deeply on one task has become a rare and valuable skill. When you apply this skill to English learning, the results are remarkable. Remember, you're not just learning to understand English better. You're training your brain to concentrate, to process information more efficiently, and to learn more effectively in general. These are skills that will benefit every area of your life. Putting it all together, your action plan for listening success. Now that you know all 5 techniques, let me give you a practical action plan for implementing them starting today. Remember, knowing these techniques is not enough. You have to actually use them consistently to see results. Here's your step-by-step plan. Choose one piece of English content that's about 10 to 15 minutes long. It could be a YouTube video, a podcast episode, a TED Talk, or even a section of a movie. Make sure it's slightly challenging but not overwhelming. Step 1. Spend 2 minutes predicting what you'll hear. Look at the title, thumbnail, or description. Think about possible vocabulary and topics. Get your brain ready. Step 2. Listen once with complete focus. No distractions, no multitasking. Listen for main ideas, not every single word. Don't panic if you miss something. Just keep going. Step 3. Take a short break. Let your brain process what you just heard. Maybe write down a few notes about the main points you understood. Step 4. Listen again with the same focus. Notice how much more you understand the second time. Use context clues to guess the meaning of any words you didn't know. Step 5. Listen one more time if needed. This time, you might notice details, emotions, or language patterns that you missed before. Do this routine every day for 2 weeks with different content each day. I guarantee you'll notice dramatic improvement in your listening comprehension. But here's the most important part. be patient with yourself. Language learning is not linear. Some days you'll feel like you understand everything. Other days you'll feel like you're back to square one. This is completely normal and part of the process. The key is consistency, not perfection. It's better to do focused listening practice for 10 minutes every day than to do it for 2 hours once a week. Small, consistent actions compound into massive results over time. Also, don't try to implement all 5 techniques perfectly from day one. Start with 1 or 2 techniques and gradually add the others as they become habits. Focus on progress, not perfection. Finally, celebrate your wins, no matter how small. Did you understand a joke in an English video? Celebrate. Did you follow a conversation without subtitles? Celebrate. Did you guess the meaning of a new word from context? Celebrate. These small victories build confidence and motivation to keep going. Remember, every native English speaker you admire started exactly where you are now. The only difference is that they've had more practice. With these 5 techniques and consistent effort, you'll be amazed at how quickly your listening skills improve. Thanks for watching English Rhythm. If this video helped you, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more practical English learning strategies. I'll see you in the next video, and remember, keep listening, keep learning, and keep believing in yourself. Your English listening goals are absolutely achievable.